for coming. Simmons is official. I know that you've been kind of scrambling there.
I don't know if he's official. He's unofficially official.
Okay.
Yeah, we expect everything to be fine. It's just a question of getting it processed.
It was Seamus, his situation, redshirting, and then last year academically, and yada, yada, yada. So you kind of putting the pieces together, wide receiver, as you go along a little bit here?
Yeah, we're just trying to look. We got a lot of young guys in there, I think, that have a chance, and we'll kind of see how they fit in, how they emerge. And I think there's some players out there. We don't have as much experience as maybe we'd want, but I think once we get through this first initial performance anxiety curve with those young guys, and they get their camp legs back, I told them usually about week 2 I can beat them in the 40, and then I think once their minds and bodies come back around, we'll be okay.
How much more potential do you have for big plays in the passing game this year than the last couple?
Well, you guys know, you've covered this before. I mean, it all starts in the O-line. You got to get people blocked up. You got to be able to run the football so that people know that that's a legitimate threat, and they've got to be able to defend that, and then you have a chance to be able to launch the football. But it's it's hard when you don't get protection, and it's hard if you don't have a running game that make people say, well, you better think about getting an 8th guy down there to defend the run, otherwise you're going to struggle. So I think all those things combined, I think it is good.
And not having Seamus for the first 2 games, how's that going to affect things?
Well, again, just those young guys, just getting those young guys ready to go.
And what kind of a senior class do you have this year?
Small. There's not a lot of guys. But I do think there's some quality players in there and guys in there. Obviously, Ryer and Pat Deviney. You've got Chappelle, who's didn't redshirt for us. Ben Burney is a guy, obviously, and then we got a pretty good core of linebackers with Jeff Smart and Marcus Burton. And I like those guys a lot. They've seen a lot. They've been through a lot, and I wish we had more of them. You'd love to have a senior class that was more in the 22 to 25 range, but the guys we got are good players and they're good guys.
I was going to ask, how much does it matter that there's only 12 on scholarship? How much does that matter?
Well, you'd love to have your roster fairly balanced out, and you'd love to have those guys that have been in your program for 5 years and have about 20 of those guys have been around for a while. So. That being said, I think because of the nature of where we've been, there's been a lot of those guys are in that junior class that have played probably a lot more than maybe a typical guy would be. So hopefully that levels things out.
Who specifically are you looking for to be leaders this year?
Geez, all of them. We spent a lot of time, I really think, in this day and age, teaching leadership and what that means. And we had a quote-unquote leadership meeting the other night, and I probably had about 30 guys in there that I thought were viable, people. And that doesn't mean some of those other guys can't come along too. But, I think there's a strong core of those guys. Obviously, you're better players. You like those guys to step up and lead that way as well. But there's a lot of them.
How important is it for you to establish the starting quarterback?
Well, we'll see. I think that's one of those things that's just got to play itself out. And if there is one, there isn't. Geez, I thought they both played really good this morning. So we'll see how it plays out.
And there's been so much talk about your offensive line. Some of that depth and experience that you've been talking about for a couple of years. Obviously, you haven't seen them in game situation, but do you like the potential you see in that group?
I do. I mean, I just think there's I like our attitude in there. I like the fact that we've got a lot of guys that have played, and the Matt Barrs and the Blake Barons that kind of got thrown into the fire last year, and their viability there. And so I think there's 7, 8 guys that conceivably could play in there and at least have been through some wars and kind of know what's going on. So yeah, and then starting to, obviously you guys have been around them enough. There's a lot of shade to be had underneath most of those guys, and so, but I like their attitude a lot.
Is that being the strength of your offense? How does it different schematically will the run game look? Will it be mostly shotgun, or you can
There'll be a little bit of mix, but we'll obviously be able to just establish it more and be able to do things that way.
Conversely, you don't have the experience on the other line, the defensive line.
Yeah.
What do you do with that group?
Well, again, it's going to be a little bit trial by fire, and we'll see, which of those young guys are able to help us out. But just a combination of doing some different things on defense. I think last year we were able to kind of sit in there statically and hold up a little bit with George and Brandon and some of those guys. And, with these guys, we're just going to have to, it's going to have to be by committee. And I think all three of those young guys are very talented. And I think we have some good players that have been waiting in the wings as well, too, but we just need those guys to grow up.
There's more ones-on-ones as far as offense and defense, so that defensive line can go against.
Oh, yeah.
the offensive
Yeah, we do a bunch of that. Yeah, we don't do a whole lot of, when we get down to the last scrimmage, we'll do more 2s-on-1s, but most of it'll be 1s-on-1s, 2s-on-2s.
Is Nick Casa, is it Casa or Casa?
Casa.
Casa, excuse me.
Yeah, that's right.
Is he more of a speed rusher? I know
He's very athletic, and I think he's put on a lot of weight, and I think as he grows into his body and Coach Pittman keeps working with him, I think he can do both. But he can run. He's very athletic. But like I said, I think as he continues to grow, he'll be able to do the other as well.
Dan, Stevens and Simmons, one's been around a couple of years, the other one's at JUCO. The immediate impact they can make.
Well, yeah, we'll just have to get Dre caught up as fast as we can. We know physically he can do some good things, but again, he's going to go through that same thing where he wasn't here this summer, and he's going to get rubber legs, and he's going to hit that performance anxiety curve, so we kind of have to milk him along and be able to put him in spots where he can do what he can do and not have to think a bunch and where his body gets caught up.
Dan, what is the challenge being coaching?
What's the challenge? Ooh, that's a good question. Well, you wear a lot more hats. I mean, I think it's good though. It's I love it. Normally when you're getting ready for the position meeting, you're on the position coaches about different stuff, and now you're running around getting all your stuff ready to go, and you're realizing the sense of urgency there. I just don't have as much time to do a lot of the extra things. I really don't. I mean, I just don't.
What extra things?
All the speaking things, all the PR things, you guys are going to find after practice when we get going, there's not going to be a 20, 30 minute, hey, how's it going? And we're going to have to hit it and get out of there because we got to get going.
Do you enjoy getting your hands kind of back up?
I do love it. I really do love it. I love teaching. I love coaching. That's why you get into this thing. And I was raised a teacher, so it is fun.
How about special teams? How does the competition for the various spots stack up?
Really good, and I think that's a real plus, and we talked about this a little bit the other day. We've got on every group probably 3 deep of guys that have played and know what to do, and that's awesome. So when you have that depth in there and that experience, that's big.
How have your quarterbacks matured physically?
They're both a lot stronger. Their numbers have continued to go up, and they're both kind of where you want them to be. They're 300-pound cleaners, they're 300-pound benchers, and I think that helps them not only just throwing the football, but just when they get bumped around a little bit.
You addressed this during the Big 12 meetings, I think, but you made a statement. What encourages you that you could tell players that
The expectation is excellence, and again, I'm one of those guys. People always say, "Oh, you're really optimistic." I'm not Pollyanna though. I mean, I look at this talent, experience, and depth formula, and you guys have covered enough sports and been around, and that thing has to start surfacing somewhere in there, and they've got to be able to make up for each other. So, as your talent pool continues to rise, and then for us, again, that whole experience thing and having some depth thing, what we've been, particularly as it gets to experience and depth, my first year here, we had 7 offensive linemen. One spring, we had 5 offensive linemen. And then last year, we're playing Nate Solder, who converted to tight end, and then 3 young guys that have never played before, backed up by guys that have never played before. That's not a good equation. But as you start filling in those gaps and kind of going, all right, we've got some guys that have been here a little bit, and we've got some guys to back them up, and we've got some players, and then you start combining that with all the other chemistry things, you're going, all right, we have a chance to do some really positive things here.